If you didn't know, shadowboxing is the most important part of your training. Everything in boxing comes off your ability to punch the air. That's why in this video we're going to go over the 4 secret pillars of shadowboxing to make you look like a pro when you do it. The 4 secret pillars to shadowboxing, and by the way, they're secret because no one else has ever told you about this because I thought of them, are technical ability, ring IQ, the body, and the mind. I'm going to go through each of those 4 and break down the fundamentals of each, starting with technical ability. So technical ability is your technique, basically, and your technique for defense, offense, footwork, whatever it might be, whatever tool that you have, you're basically sharpening the tools. So you're practicing the proper form for those. Now, the main ways you want to think about this, because you'd be like, well, what's the proper way to do anything, is what makes you most effective and most efficient. Like, what techniques are the most effective and most efficient, right? Expend the least amount of energy and do the most amount of damage, because that's what you're trying to do, and also mitigate the most amount of damage so you don't get punched in the face. So during this part of your shadowboxing, you want to just focus on the punching technique. With the punching technique, you got to think about the kinetic chain and how everything fires off from the previous part. What I mean by that is you put force into the ground, the force rotates your hips rotate your upper body fires your arm out, and then your arm turns over like this on all of the punches. Right, each of those are like little cycles of energy, just accelerating force into your knuckles so you can do more damage. And it's super efficient because you don't use any tension in your body except right at the end. You're relaxed for the whole motion of each punch till right at the end. And being relaxed means that you don't expend much energy because you don't have to fuel the muscles with oxygen and ATP, right, as much, because you're not tensing them, right? And when they're not tense, they're more effective because they can move faster, which means that you do more damage because your knuckles hit the target with more power. So the fundamentals of good punching technique are being relaxed, using proper rotation of your body, slowing down each section of your body rotating so that they're slightly delayed. Like, you don't want to be like at a 1-to-1 ratio of your hips and your upper body moving and your arm moving. You don't want everything to move in sync. You want it to be slightly delayed like this, because when it's slightly delayed, you get more of a whip and a snap. Kind of like when you're whipping a towel. It starts slow, you put the energy into it, and the snap at the end is the fastest point because that's where you pull in your arm back the quickest. It's like right at the end of a punch, you're like whipping down, but it comes from the hips and the upper body. Then anyway, I'm gonna stop yapping about that. We're relaxed, we're rotating, we've got a proper kinetic chain. We also want to flow our offense into defense and combine it with footwork at the same time. So every like rotation of your body, you can put a defense into it. So as I rotate this way, I can just take my head off the center line a little bit for a slip, or same going the other way, or rotate my body for a roll. I can put pulls in between. So everything is coming off that rotation. And then I can start to throw my shots off that as well. So everything flows together. And then we got to incorporate footwork, which is where we sort of get onto the ring IQ thing, because we need to combine moving around the ring properly in the right positions. That's what ring IQ is. So we'll start that now. All right, there's 3 things we're going to cover for ring IQ. The first thing being visualizing your opponent, and visualizing your opponent as one of 3 different styles at different times and acting accordingly. So if you didn't know, there's 3 different styles in boxing. Well, 3 different distinct styles that all the other like sub styles fit under, apart from one, but we'll go over that at the end. And these 3 styles are the slugger, the pressure fighter, and the outboxer. So I want you to imagine that you're fighting one of those each time you're shadowboxing. If you're boxing a slugger, you want to be an outboxer, because it's like a good analogy is rock, paper, scissors. The pressure fighter trumps an outboxer, just relentless pressure. An outboxer trumps a slugger because they can just stay out of out of range because they're going back more. They're not walking onto big punches. And a slugger generally trumps a pressure fighter because a pressure fighter is applying pressure and the slugger wants them to come forward because they want to walk them onto big shots. Okay, so they generally trump. A great example of this is Muhammad Ali, Joe Frazier, and George Foreman. George Foreman being the slugger, Joe Frazier being the pressure fighter, Muhammad Ali being in the outboxer, and they all fought each other, and they all of those bouts align with that rock, paper, scissors thing. So you got like Ali who's boxing George Foreman, on the back foot and using his technical ability, his defense, and George Foreman just eventually got tired and he knocked him out. Then you've got Joe Frazier, the pressure fighter, knocking out Muhammad Ali. And then you've got the slugger, George Foreman, walking Joe Frazier onto big shots. So picture that you're fighting each one of those different styles and act accordingly, knowing that information of rock, paper, scissors and adapting. Someone who can adapt well is the style referred to as boxer puncher. So a boxer puncher is someone who can punch hard but has the technical ability of a pressure fighter and a outboxer. And to be able to do that, you need a good adaptability, which is what you'll be training by visualizing each different style and also being able to punch hard. Punching hard is drilled from the technical ability part. So you got to make sure your technique is on point, your feet are planted, and you're using that kinetic chain to really dig in shots as someone comes forward. If you've got all bases covered, then you'll be much more successful in boxing. This is the hybrid style, by the way. It's what I teach in Hybrid Warrior Elite. Check the link in the description or go to hybridwarriorelite.com. 2 more points for ring IQ. You've got front foot and back foot fighting. So someone who fights on the back foot, usually an outboxer, is someone who's sort of moving around the ring and catching someone as they come in, generally a counter puncher. So practice going on the back foot and visualize someone coming forward and you walking them onto counters. Imagine they're coming forward with their jab and you're throwing right hand over the top and you're slipping out, or you're catching them with a check hook as they come in. And a front foot fighter is generally a pressure fighter, but it can apply to all different styles. And that is someone who holds the center of the ring. They're generally their back foot in the center and they use back foot pivots to cut off the ring as they step forward like this until they get whoever they're fighting in the corner, and then they can go in for their attack. They generally want to work on the inside and they're trying to close the distance all the time. All right, this is someone who's like got good durability, wants to force the pressure. If you can balance all 3 of these styles over front foot and back foot fighting, then that's good. Last thing is counter punching. So think about counters and how to set them up. So setting up a counter, you can either draw or you can feint. You can draw by like baiting with your head or using like a lazy jab. There's many ways to bait, but you can bait an attack and then you can think of how you're going to defend that or throw as they come. So that's another good thing as well. You don't always have to go back. You can just throw as they come. If they're coming to you, and just throw punches. So also using feints before you throw punches. Instead of just throwing punches, like getting into range and throwing, try and do something to trigger them to do something so that you can capitalize on them doing the thing. So for example, if I feint a jab to the body, I throw a cross to the head because they drop their hands to try and block that body shot. You can feint either high to low, low to high, or you can feint around the flanks, or you can feint down the middle and go around the flanks, but you're basically trying to manipulate what they think you're going to do. You could do that with eye feints, hand feints, foot feints, level change feints, trunk feints. Then you can start putting both the technical side and the ring IQ side together so that you're shadowboxing and sort of encompassing everything. That means that you're linking together your footwork, what you're thinking of doing, your feints, your draws, and your good punching technique using that connect chain to really simulate a fight. That's the aim. You're trying to simulate a fight, which leads me into the third secret, what do I call them? Pillar? Yeah. And that's the body. Now, the body is your body. But what I mean by your body is fitness and holding the actual the pace that you would use in an actual fight. Because a lot of people Fair enough if you're practicing your punches, your technique and stuff like that. But a lot of people just are super lazy when you shadowbox. And if you're super lazy in training, then it will kind of transfer over to your actual fight. So you need to make sure you're always treating it like you're fighting. If you treat it like you're fighting, then you won't really differ from that sort of mode. So always hold the pace and vary the tempo and rhythm like you would in an actual fight. So you could be just moving around, keeping them away with the jab, and then you can move forward and throw attacks, change the angles, and then we'll go back to the jab again, and then we'll go on the back foot, and we're back to the front foot, and we're fighting a slugger, and we're fighting an outboxer, using feints, triggers, all of that. Yeah, shadowboxing at a fight pace means that your body is going to be conditioned, is going to stay at that level, or is going to adapt to that level, which is the level you need for when you actually get in a fight. So when you're shadowboxing, make sure that you're using a pace that means that your body has to adapt. And the only thing that makes yourself adapt to anything is being in an uncomfortable situation. You're not going to adapt. Your body won't need to adapt if you're just there chilling. Right? It's not going to get any better. It's not going to get any fitter. But if you're really pushing the pace and it's uncomfortable and your mind's telling you to stop doing it, that means it's good. That means you need to keep doing it so that you're ready for when you actually do get in the ring and need to have a fight. Pillar number 4 is probably the most important, but none of them can work without the others. But this one is probably the most important, and that's the mind. Of course, you've got the ability to visualize different opponents like we talked about in Ring IQ. But aside from that, it's more about being present in the moment. Right? Your body is drilled to know what to do. That's why you train. Okay, and once you've trained, you need to sort of not forget, but be extremely present in the moment. And this is pretty hard to do. There was a drill that I used to do at Brendan Ingles' gym, and it was Sing a Rainbow, that nursery rhyme. I don't know the lyrics. I've never done it before in my life, but that, I think, anyway, that's a good example of training someone to be present in the moment and letting their body do the actions without them actually having to think. The more time you spend thinking, the more likely you are to get punched in the face. You can think about certain Ring IQ things to do in a real fight, but in reality, that split-second reaction comes from you being completely present in the ring. And you need to train that in your shadowboxing, like you do in all areas of your training, is staying completely present so that you're super reactive. What does presence mean? Not thinking about the past or the future or worrying about being punched in the face. That's actually the main one, is worrying about being punched. You need to get over that as soon as possible. If you're there or you're constantly blinking every time, you're just going to get beaten up because it's kind of like that manifestation thing. If you're thinking about being punched, you're going to get punched. You shouldn't be thinking about that. And even if you do get punched, you should be completely calm, like nothing even happened. All right, I've been smacked in the face before and just been like, all right, not even noticed it, because you're present enough. You need to be present because then you can react properly. A good tip for being more present, just generally in life, is trying to actually do it. Try and just be in the moment, just I don't know, while you're drinking your coffee or cutting the grass. That's a good example. Try and just not think about anything apart from the fact that you're cutting the grass or apart from the fact that you're sipping your coffee. Kind of hard to explain, but this is something that I need to do whilst I'm making these videos, because when we make these videos sometimes when we're in a rough patch, like we were at the start of this session, I'm just thinking too much about what I'm trying to say without actually saying anything. If this sounds at all overwhelming to you, I made a way more in-depth free masterclass which will help you implement these pillars into your boxing. It's free. Click the link in the description.